So the Plankton movie is out, and my first reaction to it was, what the hell is this? Get this off my screen. It's probably going to be a hot dumpster fire. But did I watch it because it's a Plankton-centric movie and Plankton is my favorite character, and there's going to be Plankton and Karen shipping? Yes. Yes, I did. And my honest-to-God reaction, it was actually not that bad. It was actually kind of funny. I kind of liked it. Oh no. Yes, admittedly, as much as I very much despise modern SpongeBob, this really wasn't that bad. Of course, it had its flaws. I'll make that very clear later on in the video. But for what it's worth, it's kind of just a nice little watch. Nothing insane, just fun. And arguably, that's what we want out of SpongeBob anyway, so good job, Nick. Good job. Speaking of which, this leads us into our first little category of the movie review, characterization! It's no secret that modern SpongeBob has definitely taken more of a crazy, bizarre, loony route than the original, making characters, well, not themselves. As of recently, SpongeBob has been characterized as a completely bizarre psychopath. Like, yes, he's always been dumb. That's kind of the point, but he at least has sanity. In a lot of the new episodes, he's straight up a feral animal. Same goes with Patrick. But this movie goes back to just portraying him as an optimist, someone who's always looking on the bright side, trying to see the best in people, someone who's just trying to enjoy life, have fun. Yes, he's still dumb and ignorant, but he's also self-aware. And even though we don't get to see that much of Patrick in this movie, we can definitely see that he's characterized less as whatever this is, and more just as his dumb normal self. Now, if you want to praise modern SpongeBob for literally anything, it should only be going to the fact that they are willing to explore characters. Random background characters that we've seen since the very first season are now getting lore, characters that we rarely see interact are now forming little friend groups and hanging out, and we've gotten to see more of characters' personal relationships with each other. That includes Plankton and Karen, who now have a son, by the way. His name is Chip and he's off at college. Even though I personally don't care for them, I've watched quite a few of the new SpongeBob episodes, and the ones that have Plankton and Karen, well, let's just say this movie was a little bit of a release of pressure. Like everybody else, Plankton has been getting more and more of an idiot, a feral, bizarre psychopath. And apparently, Karen and I share a brain cell because we're both sick of it. Sick of the modern incarnation of these characters. That's why I don't really blame her for snapping in the movie. On a variety of different levels, it was highly warranted. Now let me make this clear, their relationship has never been perfect. They've always fought. Oh, my Karen exists for a reason. He has cheated on and ditched her multiple times, but she's also technically programmed to love him, so I don't really think she has a choice. Which, that's toxic as hell. But regardless of everything they go through, it always ends out that he realizes he really does love her.
The whole point of this scheme was for me to get Karen back!
But this movie is different. She doesn't just cross her arms and roll away and, okay, fine, you be like that for a while. This time she snaps. She goes full villain mode. Screw you, Plankton. She lets him know that he's changed. The way he's been acting is stupid and she is fed up with it. And with that being said, on to the next category. The lore! This movie has several Plankton flashback scenes, which I loved. I appreciated so much. Until I realized that they threw away his backstory in exchange for something else entirely, and then that kind of pissed me off. This highly significant change to his backstory somehow went over my head for about half the movie. But oh boy, when I realized. You see, Plankton mentions growing up completely alone, nobody in his family really cared about him or understood him, and so to combat that, he made himself a friend, aka Karen. Now, the story that followed is really cute. It was adorable. And then I remembered, wait a minute, you did have a friend, since you were a baby. Where the hell is Mr. Krabs? Yeah, so either the movie just never bothered to acknowledge this because they thought it was that unimportant, but I don't think this canon has Plankton and Krabs as old friends, at all. But that's fine, it's not like there was an entire episode based on that premise. It's not like this has been established lore since season 5. It's not like it's an integral part of his character. As you can tell, I'm not exactly thrilled about the lore change. I don't typically like it when something this important gets retconned. Unfortunately, I think Nickelodeon is safe because it has the cheap cop-out excuse of saying, this is another world. My guess is it takes place in the same universe as Sponge on the Run, and possibly, by default, Camp Coral, even though it was never directly mentioned in the movie. Other than that part that I clearly have beef with, the rest of this new lore is actually quite acceptable. We get to see some flashbacks of Plankton in college, which I found absolutely lovely since he's consistently bragging that he went to it. Now we get to see where he went and what it was like. Spoiler alert, it was insanely hard for him, which makes him bragging that he went to college so much more of an interesting statement when all he got was Fs.
I went to college!
Yeah, you kinda seem to leave out the fact that you pretty much flunked the first year, bud. Anyway, speaking of things being funny, that leads us into our next category, the humor! Yeah, this is a modern SpongeBob movie, you can definitely tell. There are a few butt jokes and obviously random bizarre humor, but only about once or twice. Which is good, because I don't really like it. You might like the exaggerated facial expressions and wacko humor, but that's just not my cup of tea. However, if you do like it, you do you. I'm not here to judge. And then there was the gag that happened about 3 times through the entire movie. That is kind of the reason I wanted to make this video, because it caught me off guard, and I thought it was really funny. And dark. So much so that I had to rewind it, whip out my phone, and record it just for the purpose of showing you guys in this video. So yeah, without further ado, here's that. Nickelodeon, what the heck? I had to rewind that and watch it twice because I was just like, there's no way that... Oh, wait, never mind. This had happened to a far less extent earlier on in the movie with Patrick, except I just kind of assumed my brain was filling in dark humor where it didn't belong. That, of course, was until nearly the end of the movie where they just straight up were like, oh, there's blood everywhere. Oh, no, never mind, it's ketchup. When I knew that they were doing this on purpose. And then, of course, there was this moment with Mr. Krabs that kind of invoked the same shock factor reaction. You keep doing this! Then there's the mandatory parent joke that's in the kids' movie that will go over the children's heads.
Uh-huh, we're here. Good old PSU.
BS me? Plankton language.
No, you moron. Bikini State University.
Yeah, Nickelodeon, that one got a good smile out of me, I will admit. And now I must talk about one of the main reasons I wanted to make this video in the first place. The scene! Now, the scene in particular happens towards the climax of the movie. It's a very notable interaction between Plankton and SpongeBob. And if you're like me and like to overanalyze things, and maybe you've gotten too deep into the musical lore and now you're kind of invested in these characters in a way the show never intended, this one also stood out to you. I'm of course talking about the fight. Like I mentioned earlier, one of SpongeBob's main traits that really should stay consistent through the shows and movies is trying his gosh darn hardest to see the good in people, even if it's not really there. Now this applies to him and Plankton throughout the entire duration of said film. But in one singular moment, everything comes crumbling down, SpongeBob finally breaks, and after 26 years of show runtime, he finally gets it in his head. Plankton isn't his friend. And it eventually leads to him saying something to Plankton that, in his morals, he'd probably consider a swear word. SpongeBob cussed out Plankton. Except not really, but just like...
Plankton, you caused this. You lied to me. You were never interested in getting back with Karen. And now look what's happened. You did this. You! This is all your fault!
Which, like, that alone, you should know you've done something horrible. SpongeBob never raises his voice like that. But it gets worse because Plankton refuses to take the blame, and SpongeBob just kind of goes off on him for it.
No, it's not.
Let me put this simply. Mr. Krabs was right. You're just a pitiful, pathetic jerk! I'll leave now. I'm going to be with my real friends.
And you can just see the hurt on his face even saying that out loud, accepting the fact. So much so that he can't hold it in, he wells up in tears and cries, running away. It's genuinely heartbreaking because you rarely ever see him just accept defeat like that. And Plankton's reaction makes it seem like even he was never expecting this to happen. You can tell he realized he's went too far and that devastates him.
SpongeBob? Don't leave me alone.
From an emotional, like, character development standpoint, this scene is just... I take these funny little guys way too far. Now, before I spoil the entirety of this movie by going on a Plankton and Karen shipping rant, On to the last but not least, and probably pretty quick, section of the video. The songs! Like I mentioned earlier, this movie is actually a musical. And you know what? Surprisingly, they were actually pretty good songs. Not nearly as good as the SpongeBob musical, but there were a few times after I watched the movie that I found myself kind of just humming them, or singing them quietly to myself. I made a new friend. Karen's song is actually a banger, and the visuals made me realize something kind of funny. It shows her emerging from the ocean and, taking over the actual planet, like the Empire State Building and stuff, which kind of caught me off guard because at first I was like, what is she doing in the real world? And then I remembered, oh yeah, Bikini Bottom is literally just under the ocean, they are on Earth. It's just kind of funny that I was so immersed in the underwater world that I forgot it was a world just underwater. Plankton's song, Jerk, perfectly encapsulates his personality, and you know what? He's flawed. He is flawed as hell as a character, but that's why we love him. I Made a New Friend is Plankton and Karen's backstory and is absolutely adorable. The opening number is super fun, and Plankton's first song, I Plankton, is surprisingly really fun. Like I said before, it has nothing on the SpongeBob musical, but it's still a nice watch, and I highly recommend it. I tried my hardest to make sure this video had everything I wanted to blabber about without spoiling everything, so you guys would still have some incentive to watch it. And if it's the kind of thing you're into, you totally should. It's just a really fun time. So yeah, that's all I really wanted to talk about today. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and as always, stay creative. Bye!